Hi guys, today I'm going to show you my presentation in music about classical period. Musical of the classical period. Franz Joseph Haydn, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Ludwig van Beethoven. Characteristics of classical music. The classical period is often referred to as the age of reason or the Enlightenment. It looks after the betterment of humanity through good education. Philosophers like Rousseau and Voltaire wrote about the common people and the power of human reasoning in communicating the problems of the world. Thus conflict arise between the old and new ideas. In music, the classical period reflected the changes in society where music is written. It is during this period where public and concerts became important. While music is still being used in occurs in churches, the rise of public concerts reflected the new view that music should also be written and enjoyed by the common people. Music in the classical period started from 1750 to 1827. It served a highly sophisticated as wealthy society. It is also referred to as the Viennese classical period because most of the famous composers like Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven worked in Vienna. The fundamental changes in musical style that differentiated the Baroque from the classical were inspired by the Rococo ideals. The artistic expression dedicated to elegance, gracefulness, at the same time frivolous. Church music was no longer a major patron for composing sacred music since secular music is more popular as seen in the dance music during the period. Major forms of music were the symphony, concerto, sonata, and string quartet. New instruments like the trumpet and piano were introduced in new dance forms such as romantic waltz and the minuet energy during this period. Vocal forms or vocal music. Most vocal music during the classical period originated in Italy. Reform opera was the first that falls under the vocal music. Some composers reacted it to be more natural and directly expressive rather than giving more ornamentations and embellishment for a solo singer. There are two types of opera in this period. Opera seria, also known as a serious opera or grand opera. It implies heroic or tragic drama usually about mythological characters like the gods and goddess. Comic opera, operas that use spoken dialogues or recitatives with less professional music. The different types of comic opera. Opera buffa, a full-length comic opera sung throughout with combination of series and characters. There are fast recitatives with accompaniment. Opera comique, a kind of opera where songs were performed alternately with spoken dialogue. It came from France. Other types of opera during this period. English ballad opera. It consists of songs that set new words to borrowed tunes and parodied operatic conventions. Singspiel, an opera in Germany with spoken dialogue and lively musical numbers in styles familiar to Germany or influenced by Italian comic opera. These are short video examples of opera. The first is opera seria. next is opera buffa.
Ba 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 beep 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 ba 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 beep 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 ba 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 beep 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 ba 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 beep 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 ba 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 beep 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 pizza. Voglio fare la buona pasta, voglio fare la buona pizza, preferio fare la buona pasta, preferio fare la buona pizza, la buona pizza, la buona pizza.
Instrumental forms. During the classical period, instrument music became more important than vocal music. The use of clavichord or the fortepiano rather than harpsichord was preferred during this period because these instruments show the importance of the dynamic elements of the classical period such as crescendo, diminuendo, and sforzando. Sonata. It means an extended instrumental work for a sub instrument with a piano accompaniment, originally in 3 movements. Movements differ in tempo, melody, and theme, but are held together by a subject and style. The following are the movements of a sonata: a serious allegro, fast; a slow, lyrical movement; a minute and trio; a finale. Sonata Allegro form. This is the internal structure of the fast movement of the sonata. It has 3 main sections consisting basically of exposition, development, and recapitulation. Symphony. It is the most important and influential form of the sonata that is played by an orchestra. It came from the word sinfonia and consists of 4 elements which contrast in tempo and in mood. The 4 movements of the symphony are the following: fast and lively, slow, fast, brilliant, and fast. Concerto. The classical period concerto is an instrumental work for solo instrument like the piano, violin, or any other instrument with the orchestra of accompaniment. This is to primarily emphasize the sound of solo instrument and to show the great performance of the instrumentalist. A concerto has 3 movements: fast, slow, and fast. These are the most famous composers of the classical period. Franz Joseph Haydn. Franz Joseph Haydn was considered to be the key figure in the evolution of music during the classical period. He was hired by rich patrons and eventually became the musical director of the Esterhazy family, one of the most influential family in Hungary for 30 years. Haydn is remembered as the father of symphony and the composer who established the forms and styles for the string, quartet, and the symphony. Joseph Haydn was born on March 31, 1732, Aro, Austria. At a young age, he was recruited to join the choir at St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna. He stayed and learned to play the violin and keyboard until he left at the age of 17. After he left, he gave lessons and played serenades to earn money. Because of such exposure, he met a famous singer by the name of Nicola Porpora and asked him to become her accompanist. As a result of his perseverance, consistent practice, and performance, his musical talent has grown ever more. Haydn died in Vienna on May 31, 1801, and was deeply mourned by friends and rivals in the music scene because he was such a noble man. Haydn was a self-taught musician. His great influence on the innovations of instrumental music made him known as the father of the symphony. He did not actually invent the symphony, but his 108 works started the evolution from the movement with 20 players of the Baroque period to a four-movement with as many as 60 players in the classical period. His famous works, two large oratorios, The Creation 1798 and The Seasons 1801, London Symphony, Symphony number 104, Military Symphony, Symphony number 100, The Clock Symphony, Symphony number 101. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was considered as the greatest musical genius of all time. He was a brilliant composer who was sought out by kings and emperors. He created a large number of operas, symphonies, concertos, and sonatas that profoundly shaped the classical music. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born in Salzburg, Austria on January 27, 1756. His father was an excellent musician, a violinist in the court orchestra of the Archbishop of Salzburg. Upon recognizing his son's extraordinary talent in music, he began to teach him how to play the harpsichord and the violin. He was already composing respectable compositions even at the age of 5, and outshines other musicians many times his age when he performs. At the age of 6, he is already touring Europe to play royalties. He could listen to music once and write it down without a mistake. Mozart has an older sister named Maria Anna, also known as Nannerl, who is also a fine musician. Together they would perform to bring fame and money to the family. Everywhere they went, people would always marvel on how great they were and would pay well just to see them perform. He continued to compose music for sonatas, symphonies, and even at the age of 15. Leopold was criticized by pushing his two children to perform even at an early age, but this led Mozart to get the best education ever. He had opportunities to meet the best musicians of all over Europe, with influence from each other musicians. Mozart used everything he learned to create masterpieces during his teenage years. He worked with the Archbishop of Salzburg and had the opportunity to work in many genres. However, he became discontented and longed for other employment opportunities, not for financial security but for fame. He left Salzburg and went to the City of Dreams as a freelance musician. When he was in Vienna, he married Constance Weber at the age of 25 and had 2 children. Over the next 10 years, he wrote over 200 works, but due to his lavish lifestyle, saving money became impossible. Before he died, he was working on his Requiem, but unfortunately did not finish it. Mozart died on December 5, 1791, at the age of 35. No one is sure where Mozart's body is when he died. According to the stories, he was buried in a common grave outside the city of Vienna, and only a few people attended his funeral. Classical styles is evident in all of Mozart's works. His music has natural flow that can express various emotions with both conviction and mastery. His operas are examples of brilliant art as piano, concertos, and symphonies. Among his famous works are the following: Idomeneo, The Marriage of Figaro, Gian Giovanni, Cousin fan tutte, German opera, The Magic Flute, choral works. Both were unfinished work, Missa Solemnis, Requiem. Ludwig van Beethoven. Beethoven was a man of iron determination, a proud one with an enormous courage to triumph over his deafness. During his time, composers were regarded simply as servants of the wealthy people. Because of this, he was challenged to prove his own worth. He behaved as their equal when he mingled with the aristocrats. He calls himself a Tondichter because his music showed individualism, and his personal ideas are not conforming to the traditional way, which led to the next era of Romanticism. Recognized as the prince of all composers, Beethoven represents the highest level of a musical genius. There is no documented evidence of the exact date of his birth. What was only recorded was his baptism on December 17, 1770, at Bonn, Rhine, Germany, where he was brought up. Some say Beethoven might be born a day before his baptism. He is the second son of court musician and a tenor singer, Johann van Beethoven. When his father learned about his musical ability, he was immediately given a true lesson on music. Johann taught him how to play the harpsichord and the violin. He was neglected of formal school because his father wanted him to become a child prodigy like Mozart and to earn money for a living. But because of his father's limited teaching talent, Beethoven continued to learn music, specifically organ and composition under Christian Gottlieb, a court organist who became his agent. Beethoven was then appointed as a second organist and an assistant harpsichord player. Ludwig left Germany at the age of 17 and went to Vienna for further studies. He met Mozart and had a few lessons with him, but Beethoven returned to his hometown soon after he learned about his mother's passing. In Germany, people learned of his remarkable talent as a pianist and composer. When Haydn learned about Beethoven's talent while he passed through Bonn on his way to London, he told Beethoven to take lessons from him. Haydn became his teacher for just a short time because of Beethoven's stubbornness, but that experience led Beethoven to meet the noble and the aristocrats of Vienna. Beethoven died at the age of 56 in Austria on March 26, 1827. With friends behind him, it is said that his last act was to shake his fist at a thunderstorm raging outside, a gesture of an act of heroic boldness against all that misfortune could bring. Vienna indeed mourned his passing.